Here we are for another Offsite construction series. I'm your host, Audrey Grabesic, and we are on Offsite Dirt. It's interesting when we think about Offsite, sometimes it correlates to Onsite as well in the construction form. We are speaking with a modular manufacturer, and it's interesting, not only do they do Offsite and modular construction, but they also do traditional construction with their modular kit of parts, let's say. So we're with Russell Ward. Russell is with Modular Elevator Manufacturing. Welcome, Russell. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Audrey?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for making the time for us. What are the differences between traditional elevators and your modular elevators?
Yeah, there's a lot of differences, and honestly, it begins and ends with that traditional elevator perspective. It's just not conducive for building in today's modern world. And what I mean by that is a traditional elevator is, and you've all seen them, everybody's seen them. You drive by the job site after the foundation is poured, and there's this monolith, the ignorant, standing in the middle, which is the hoistway. Then that hoistway stands there or sits there throughout almost the entire build until electricity is brought to the site. And then they bring one piece at a time into the hoistway. So everything that's inside an elevator gets brought into the site one piece at a time until it's finally ready to go. And so the power has to be on for that process to take place. With modular, we take that entire process of bringing one piece at a time, we bring it inside the factory. So we build the hoistway, and then we run it down the production line, and we install everything in the elevator when it arrives on site. So it gets dropped into place. It's a finished elevator. And so that's a big difference.
It is, and we were discussing that you don't have to have a modular project to have a modular elevator, right?
No, absolutely not. That's now we do a lot of business with modular industry. I mean, they're our friends. They understand us. They know when we're talking about dropping something with a crane that it's not a difficult thing for them to understand. It's not a hard, complex thing for them to get. So we love the modular industry, and they help us out a whole bunch. But on the other hand, if a business has got an elevator, they just need to be put inside to make their building ADA compliant. They can go in the middle of the project. You just need to cut holes in the ceiling and the roof of each floor. You drop a finished elevator into place, and then it gets turned on and set to hit the floors right. So that can be done. Traditional construction, if you're building a regular building and you just want to take the elevator totally off the critical path, you can do that as well. You don't have to worry about the elevator crew coming and going. You don't have to worry about storage for the elevator parts on site. It gets put in place when you want it to go in place. And so we're a big benefit to builders of all sorts.
So what is the typical time frame if we were going to do just maybe a basic elevator? What is the time frame on the actual install once you have it built and the kit of parts come to the site?
Yeah, it's really short, amazingly enough. Now, the elevator itself, once we do all the calculations, we do all the engineering, everything is finished, everything's completed. The factory process takes about 8 to 16 weeks, depending on parts availability and engineering and all those other things that tend to pop up in the modular industry. However, that 16-week period can be shortened, but most importantly, it's time to when the customer wants the product. So the customer determines when they want the elevator put in place on the site, and as a result, sometimes our elevators are even used for construction elevators. So that's a huge savings on the elevator itself, or on the construction cost itself, and it can be an enormous benefit. So they can have a construction elevator, they get the elevator when they want it, and that we're not a problem at all for them. We're not in their way. Like I said, we're not taking up their space. And then it gets started up in about a week, give or take, and it actually gets dropped into place in a couple hours.
It's incredible.
So yeah, so they have a fully functional, the elevator is fully installed in the hoistway. It takes a couple hours to put it into place, and then it takes a week to 3 days to get it started up when we do have power.
And so in that process also, I'm guessing that you probably go through those same type of inspections that you would on a traditional type of product, right?
Oh yeah, even more so actually. Our elevators are higher quality than what you normally find through traditional elevator construction because you simply walk the hoistway. I mean, I know we saw some pictures of the factory. If you want to bring that back up, the manufacturing site, but the elevator hoistway is actually laying on its side, and all the parts are there to be seen. And literally, our inspectors walk that hoistway constantly to make sure that the fit and the finish are perfect, to make sure that the rails are right and that they're perfect every time. Because it's factory made, the hoistway is always plumb and it's always straight. I mean, there are tons of benefits to that, and it's inspected then, and then it's also inspected at the end of the job like every other elevator. So every elevator has to undergo an inspection depending on the jurisdiction that it's placed in. And our elevators are no different than that. But because it's inspected so frequently through the process, it's not reliant upon that one inspection. And as a matter of fact, we have never, ever had an elevator fail an inspection. It's not happened. So it becomes more of a formality and less of a problem or issue.
Let's look at some of your projects because I think it's
Sure.
so dynamic when you can actually visually see, the photos of a project.
Absolutely. If you want to bring up maybe the housing project that we did.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a beautiful housing project. This is in Los Angeles. And of course, there's a humongous need for housing in Los Angeles right now. They've got a huge homeless population. They've got these neighborhoods with dilapidated homes, and they don't get much space. So they have to build up as much as anything else. So in this particular project, they have a three-story project. The elevator is there on the left-hand side. And again, it's exterior because these can be self-supporting. They're engineered and designed to be self-supporting, even in California's seismic zone. And there it is. The machine room is actually attached to the back. And it's a beautiful little project. And that went up, like I said, 2 hours it took to put that in place, and it was up and running in a week.
You know what else I think is really special about that design and being able to have a freestanding that can attach to a building? It can go on any building, right? And so we're not going through the whole process of starting from the beginning and then having the elevator in the middle of the building. And I think that's such an accessible way of how you explained it, not to mention all the formalities of, the structural and the engineering, and then marrying those with a product. It's amazing how beautifully designed that is. And obviously the key is to being able to help individuals and maybe disabled people be able to move fluidly and be able to live the best life that they can live as well.
Absolutely. And actually, the reason for modular elevators at all was when the ADA Act was passed back in the 80s to give access to people. And it was a needed law, but there wasn't a really good way to just throw an elevator into a building. So these were designed to be self-supporting, so they can be put on the outside of the building. But you're exactly right. They can be put on the inside of the building as well. If you bring up the picture from the medical center, you can see an example of, again, an exterior elevator in the larger picture on the right. But you can see the interior looks like an elevator, because an elevator is an elevator. A dirty little secret of the elevator industry that nobody talks about too much is elevator parts are elevator parts. Almost every elevator in the United States contains the exact same parts, whether it's our parts or theirs. So our elevators are just like the other elevators. They're just built smarter and greener and faster.
We were actually working on it was a 5-story building, and I happened to call 3 traditional, and this was in Denver, and I called 3 traditional elevator companies. Their capacity, I think they were like a year out. It was crazy how there's such a need for it. So I love that you're able to build these into pieces. So When we're looking, can we look back at that picture, and on that picture onto the left side of it, it might be your right, but it actually shows the crane holding it. Did that actually come in two pieces, or was it one fully functioned piece?
Yeah, no, in this particular case, it's one piece. That's a
Wow.
two-stop elevator. And so that's the entire elevator, stem to stern, right there in that picture. But if we're going 5 stories, these are designed to where they're stackable. So they can go up much higher than that. The only thing that can slow us down or prevent us from putting our elevator into place is a low bridge. But that's a problem for
Yeah,
everybody.
that would be
So,
hard.
and but the thing is people think, oh, low bridge. Well, then you can't do a hospital elevator. That picture that you just put up, that's from a medical center. So those are gurney compliant elevators. Those are big enough to transport somebody in a medical bed. So the size doesn't matter. The capacity doesn't matter. We do freight elevators as well. Like I said, as long as they fit under a bridge, we're good to go.
So when you're designing the components, is it two components? Is it the actual elevator shaft, and then next to it is it the engineering or the engine that actually, makes it move? So is there two parts to it, or is it come all in one area?
Right. There's a couple different elevators and a couple different styles. Generally speaking, the way we do ours is the elevator is built with the hoistway, and the hoistway is built in two pieces, but they're put together so they're lined up, so all the rails are always going to meet perfectly. So that's the key with us, is everything is perfect from top to bottom. Then all the components are put in. While the elevator shaft components are being put in, including the elevator jacks and the stands and the pit ladder and drywall and all that other stuff is being done, the doors, the elevator car is being built in a different part of our factory. At the end of the process, when both are finished, then it's inserted. If it's a 5-stop elevator, for instance, if it were hydraulic, then an in-ground jack would be used. So the in-ground jack's got to go in before the elevator goes in. But again, you've got the crane there. It drops the jack in. The elevator goes on top of that, and then it's a finished product. So that's kind of how it is. I hope I answered the question right.
No, I think it's great because when we were talking about ours, we were actually talking about that specific thing and how the general contractor was going to put those pieces into the project. So I think that was an awesome answer. I'm interested in knowing, is there a real cost savings to using your product compared to traditional elevator system?
Yeah, there sure is. And the thing is, at first blush, I mean, sometimes people get the price of ours. It's like, oh, that's not as competitive as I thought it would be, or it's not a lot less. But quite often they're forgetting that ours comes with a hoistway and they have to build the hoistway if it doesn't come with one. So that's the first thing. The second thing is in construction, you've got that elevator hoistway. It's not a completed finished work. So the elevator crew in traditional construction, the last people on the job site, they're finishing putting doors and frames on, where our elevator comes with doors and frames already finished and already wrapped in drywall. So the one supervisor told me that the total project saved him $30,000 to $40,000 per opening because he didn't have to call back the drywall folks.
It's
He
funny that
didn't
you
have to.
say that because we were thinking
Yeah.
about that same scope of work. Like, is that another piece that we have to put into the plan, right? So it's nice to see that you guys have taken care of that key component.
Absolutely. And so they're calling back flooring and rock and tape, and they're calling back sprinkler people. Well, everything's already inside the hoistway, and the exterior of the hoistway is finished. So there's no callbacks. So he estimated, and that's just the interior. Then you got exterior issues as well. He figured it was a savings of $30,000 to $40,000 per elevator. He put in 6 elevators in one location. So you can imagine how much money he saved. And he thought it was fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'd love to see your stadium design.
Oh, sure, throw that up. It's a beautiful stadium. When people started designing stadiums and improving them, they forgot that if you've got a press box, then you've got to have an elevator ring of that press box. And so we did a whole bunch of stadium elevators. Now this is for a football stadium. And this is the parking lot side of the football stadium. We go in a lot of parking lots as well, but you can see there are places on the corners, and then also on the other side of the stadium, you've got the press box, and it goes up to the press box as well. Gets people where they want to go. What's unique about this one is this is exactly one where the power was turned on, and so they utilized our elevators as construction elevators throughout the project. So that saved them just tons of money. When you're talking about being able to put a construction elevator, drawing a line through the construction elevator in your plans and using the elevator that's going to be existing there, it's a huge savings. So that was up and running the entire time the project was being built.
Well, not to mention it's the use of it, right? Being able to move things from floor to floor and not having to hoist or having a pick or something else out there. I mean, the ease to being able to have that flexibility and being able to move product is my gosh, you just save so much time and effort and labor.
Yeah, it's true, and we stay flexible too. We're like the rest of the modular industry. We're not carved into stone. And on the dorm project we did, I think you've got a couple of pictures of the dorm project that we did. That's a prime example of that. You've got a traditional elevator, wasn't going to work in this place. It just wasn't going to. And so to help out the customer to make this work like it was supposed to, we kept the elevator in its various components. So we show up at the site, we drop the upper left-hand corner. You see the picture of the elevator going into place. It's a three-stop elevator. And then because of where the location was and the reach that the crane had and the weight limitations, we then put the elevator car in next. And then we drop the roof on, and then we put the modular machine room right next to it. And of course, it was finished. It's a beautiful project, making a dorm accessible to all students, regardless of disability. So it's a really great project.
What is the smallest elevator and what is the largest elevator that you have done?
Right. Well, we do LULAs. We don't do them very often, but that's the limited use, limited application elevators. And those are really lightweight elevators, but just two-stop elevators. But on the other hand, it's not unusual for us to go 60, 70 feet and use a different mode of conveyance other than just strictly hydraulic. So we're very flexible in that as well. So 60, 70 feet of travel, not a problem. We can usually figure out a way to get that done.
That's amazing. So you have a couple of factories. So I'm guessing that, Russell, your business has really expanded over the last couple of years. Would that be right?
Oh, yeah, sometimes we're sad that we're as busy as we are, but other times we're extremely happy. No, I know in the past 3 years, we've more than doubled our output. We had to double the factory space in one of our facilities, and we're going to be building. I don't see any way we're going to be able to keep up with demand unless we build more.
Yeah,
So
I agree. And
I would
obviously
expect
there's a
that.
need. So it's nice to see that you guys have figured it out.
Mhm. Yeah, well, it makes it easy. It's a very simple way to install an elevator. It only makes sense. Uh, it's greener. We haven't even talked about that yet. I mean, because there's no waste in the factory compared to all the waste that's out there. There's nobody coming and going in cars. I mean, how many times does the elevator crew show up? They unload or load, then they leave, then they show up again. I mean, if it gets under 55 degrees, a traditional elevator company has to pack up and leave. You can't install an elevator when it's cold. But if it's installed in a factory, you don't have any of that. So you don't have all that waste. You don't have that. We know what dimensions we're cutting. We know how big a steel we need to order. It's not like that in the traditional elevator business. And so there's a lot of waste. So we're a lot greener as well. Plus, we can save money. Plus, we're more efficient. We aren't in the way on the job site. Plus, there's a cost savings, and it's just a better way of doing it. It really is.
I'm so glad that you have figured this out, and I'm so happy that we're having this discussion because you and I both know we are evolving and changing and expanding, and I love also that it's not just a modular project that can use your type of product, it's also traditional. And so are you seeing are you seeing more sway on one side? Are you doing more traditional projects right now or more modular projects, or is it kind of 50-50?
Yeah, surprisingly, it's about 50-50. And it's evenly split, I would say, between traditional, between retrofit projects, and between modular projects. So I think that's probably all three are evenly split with about a third each, because it is such a good solution. And that's really what we're about. We're about providing a solution. And if you're needing a lower mid-rise elevator, then we'll figure it out for you.
Well, thank you for speaking with us today. I love that we're continuing the conversation and allowing people to know that there's other products out there, and you may not be doing an off-site construction or a solution project, but even if you're in the traditional and you're a general contractor, this might be a solution for you that actually can not only save you money, save you time, but it can also be installed in a really quick pace opportunity to make the project work and work better.
Absolutely. And I think you guys should take a bow too. This is needed. What you guys are doing is great work.
Oh, thank you,
I am
Russell.
pleased to be here.
Thank
Makes
you.
me happy to be here. So good job. Your whole
Thank
staff too.
You're so sweet. Well, thank you so much. And there you go. It starts from the dirt up. That's what we've been talking about on Offsite Dirt. A modular manufacturing elevator company not only does modular or offsite projects, but they can also help the traditional construction owner have success in being able to build his product as well. Thank you for joining us today on another Offsite Construction Series. I'm Audrey, your host on Offsite Dirt.